was up and up and up, and boom! They stopped doping. Oh, come on. And in one of my books, I think the New Lord of the Rings book, I did get a Russian researcher to go and look, and he talked to some of the people. KGB guys, it's just people doing a job, collect the positive test, pour them down the sink, and they did have a note of a few of the teams, not the identities of the athletes, but their nationality. But let's be clear about this. The IOC encouraged doping. Why? Why would these totally decent people, some of them European royalty, so just mind your manners, please, speaking to a European, doping brings world records. Television is not going to spend big bucks on a bunch of amateur runners running their little hearts out, doing all the things that are supposed to be good and decent in sport, and are indeed good and decent, if they can't set world records. Sorry, they're bums. We're not paying for them. We're not paying for them. Why pay for them? There's nothing exciting, and television is there to excite, and I speak as a television reporter sometimes. So you had to have a clean product. So that's why Moscow, as Dassler starts the negotiations with the brands, and it dragged on a long time. And in the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, at least 9 positive tests were suppressed. And that was not my discovery, that was a colleague who made a program for BBC Television where they went and found 3 of the doctors who'd been on the IOC Medical Commission. They actually, you know, the white coats that did the work. And they rather pathetically admitted that they'd signed the confidentiality agreements, so for years they never revealed that at least 9 positives went up to Samarank's Medical Commission, the IOC members, and went up and up and up and up and never seen again. Bad for business. I think they got to 11 or something like that in Los Angeles. Not the big sports, sports that don't get so much coverage, but as they came into the last few days when you get the big track and field finals, and if you've ever got really time on your hands and nothing to do at all, go back and look at the medalists in those last few days in the big track finals and wonder, were they clean? They might have been, but they weren't all clean. Some of them were dirty. People who got their gold medals in the big events in Moscow, were they clean? Were they dirty? Some of them are leading members of our societies now. This is never raised. Even the question, were you clean? Not saying you weren't, but there's a question mark there because positive tests were thrown away. The medical doctors admitted this. They talked about it. It took bloody long enough for them to talk to journalists. At least they did eventually, and the BBC made a very good film about it. It wasn't until, in fact, Seoul in 1988 that Dassler's ISL company got their super contract with the IOC and launched what they called the TOP program, the Olympic program. It had these posh names for basically privatising the Olympics. Now, Horst Dassler died in 1987. He died young. His lieutenant, and this is another name I urge you to remember, Jean-Marie Weber, who today we call the Bagman, took over the job of laundering the bribes to sports officials in return for these fantastically, just huge, multi-billion-dollar contracts for TV and marketing for the World Cup and the Olympics. Now, a decade later, the IOC fired Weber and they took the marketing in-house, so it didn't run for so long. But here we have, yes, on the left, there's Jean-Marie Weber in 2004 in Tunis with FIFA President Sepp Blatter. Is he passing you an envelope? I can't be sure. They don't look like they hate each other, do they? They're getting on quite nicely, aren't they? The bagman and the president of the biggest sport in the world. Now, I was in a Swiss courtroom last year, in March of last year, and sat there, and professional reporters here will know that moment. You're sitting there in a court case, crash point. You know, they're going on and on and on, and the evidence is very interesting, and then suddenly, everybody goes, what did he say? Did you? I was asleep. What did he say? What did he say? You know, trying to catch up quick from the people who were awake. When Weber was on trial, not for bribery, but the ISL company had gone bust, and he and 5 other executives were up for fraud. Basically, paying the bribes was not illegal in Switzerland when they did it, as now. But they were paying the bribes when the company was going down the tubes, and so the prosecuting authority thought they were defrauding creditors. They should have been paying their debts to their trade creditors, not keeping the money going out because they thought they were going to survive. And at one point, there are 3 judges in the Canton of Zug system, and one of them is like the kind of interrogator, not like our system we have here and we have in England of the QC for the prosecution, interrogating, attacking in an adversarial manner the defenders. Instead, one of the judges does it. It doesn't really make a lot of difference. Questions get asked. And Mr. Weber and his friends were being, his colleagues were being a little bit arrogant. And that's when the magic moment, one of the most important moments in the history of world sport. Reuter and AP were too busy to attend. The Reuter reporter now edits FIFA's monthly football magazine. I know AP have got staffing problems. I can understand why they were late there. What I can't understand is when a bunch of very, very experienced reporters said, here's our notebooks, here's Weber, admitting paying around 100 million US dollars to sports officials in the 1990s. The judge said to him, getting seriously pissed off with Weber, being that I'm not talking to you, you know, what do you think you can do to me? Suddenly this is when the bomb went off and the judge said, would you accept, because it obviously was in the interrogations, we got a 235-page criminal indictment, this information wasn't in it, it just wasn't in it, there's no reason why not, because the prosecution wanted them badly, but it wasn't seen as relevant. And the judge got really pissed and he said, would you admit between 1990 and 1999 you paid around, he gave it in Swiss francs, but it's just about 100 million US dollars, a staggering figure. And Weber said, yes, and the other 5 said, yes. And the judge says, who did it go to? 5 of them go, I don't know. And I by and large believe them. I mean, they knew, but they didn't have the documentation. Weber said, it's a matter of honour, I have to keep this confidential, these are honourable transactions. And very sadly now, if he tried that in an English court, the judge would have you straight down in the cells for a few days for contempt of court. Judge asks you a question, you bloody well answer it. If you don't, you can go and sit in a cold cell for a bit and think about your answer, and then come back and you can go back to the cell because it's contempt of the court. Sadly, they didn't do that. He got away with it, though he got very good media coverage outside, but not in the English language. I think my report on my website is the only English language report, because I'm with a lot of German reporters and German-speaking Swiss reporters, check the notes over and over again, because I don't want to be wrong, I don't want to be sued. And so I've got the only English language report, which is not right. It just isn't right with an issue this big. Well, there was Mr. Weber with his friend Herr Blatter. Blatter took the money in cash. Right. And here's me in Copenhagen last month asking Weber, and I found him inside the IOC session. And Steph and other reporters, and you will guess, to get into these things these days, you have to fill in a lot of things online, you know, who you are, who you work for, date of birth, which side of your face you scratch when you wake up in the morning, all this essential detail they know before they issue accreditation. And we get it, I get it now. They had to let me back in after, they banned me for years, but after Salt Lake they had to let me back in again. But, you know, you fill all this in. What is this man doing inside that security ring? The bag man. The biggest payer of bribes in world sport. And in lots of other areas of life as well. 100 mil US is quite a lot, isn't it? So I thought I'd go and ask him. Anybody here, did you pay? He wasn't very happy about that. We were filming it for Danish television, but I was very polite. If you look on my website, you'll see the exchange. I'm more low-key than you could ever imagine, because when you're doing it on television, you go in low-key. And then the viewers are listening to their answers, which is what really matters, not your projection. And here's a picture from Copenhagen. And this tells us something about how the IOC still works. There's our friend Jean-Marie Weber on the right. Do you know who it is on the left? It's João Havelange. We came across him earlier. The man put in power at FIFA in 1974 with Dassler's bribes. 46 years on the IOC, now aged 93. And if you read particularly the American papers, because they know everything, they're IOC reporters. They're brilliant. They'll tell you so. And they never got a story, ever. And they told us that the reason Avalanche and Brazil and Rio